Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Tia. I'm based in our Montreal office, our headquarters, and we have Leanne here with us, who is based in Calgary. She's one of our strategic account executives, and she's going to show you guys the regulatory side of the platform. I'm sure she's going to introduce herself properly, and just to add, I'm going to input both of our emails for if anybody has any follow-up questions for after the meeting. As for questions during the meeting, feel free to just put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them maybe as we go or towards the end. Yeah, and all of your chats, if you'd like, you can just send them to us. You can also send them to everybody if you'd like it to be public. Is everybody able to hear us? I just got a chat saying someone cannot hear anything. Or can somebody else confirm if we are audible? Great. Somebody else confirmed that we are audible. Bob, I fear this may be something with your laptop. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Leanne. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thanks, Tia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling in today from. Um, as Tia mentioned, I'm actually in BC right now, so a little bit. So it's what is it, 10 a.m. for me. Um, I've been on the kind of compliance software space for about 25 years now, and looking forward to getting to know you guys and reach out after the call if you want kind of more information. We're trying a new format. It's the second time we've tried this where we're just doing like a 30-minute quick overview, and then T and I will be around for Q&A after for those that need to jump off. So it is a high-paced or a high-level demo, which we can obviously do a longer one later and dive deep. I know that it's a lot to take in 30 minutes, so I can appreciate the drinking from a fire hose metaphor, but we'll get through it. So I've got a few slides that just give, so for those of you that don't know anything about Mnemonic, I'll just go over a few slides here. We can forward the slide deck afterwards, so no need to write any down or copy it. We do have a longer version as well. This is just a high level one. And as Tia mentioned, some of you just came off the standards webinar, and this one here is focused on the regulatory. So kind of our main distinction is in the standards world, the documents are very controlled and copyrighted. And then on the regulatory piece, they're opened up. We can do a little bit more with them. It's not as regulated. It's not copyrighted. So that's kind of our main distinction is the actual underlying content between the two. Within the platform, there's anything from quick, easy access to just opening a document to compliance workflow, and that's kind of what we'll get into more today and understanding kind of where your company potentially fits on that compliance roadmap and what kind of tools that you need. And we want to meet you where you're at as far as your abilities, your resources, your team, your budget, and so forth. So we'll kind of dive into that. So a little bit background on us. We were founded over 17 years ago. Our original spin out was from an environmental consulting company, so just environmental regulatory compliance and just Canada. And then over the last 17 years, we've grown into, I believe we're in 60 countries and quite a few different topic areas. So as I mentioned, starting with just environment, but now one of the things that separates us from other products in the market is that our topics extend beyond that. So we'll dive into that a little bit. We have about 900 customers worldwide. And we'd like to say that our software is kind of content agnostic in the sense that we can, when we're looking at compliance, it doesn't matter if it's a medical issue, a medical device company, it doesn't matter if it's a oil and gas, if it's manufacturing. A lot of the monitoring piece, the assessment, the workflow stays the same, whether it's, like I said, an environmental topic or a health and safety topic. So when we're looking at our workflow and our approach and sort of our software, here's kind of how we look at it. We start by saying, what are the different documents that you need to comply with? What are the those documents that have in them the obligations that you need to be following? And then once we can identify and extract those obligations from the documents, we could then look at saying, well, what do we want to do? We want to risk rank this? Do we want to then identify, the high risk from the low risk, recognizing that there's probably more obligations than there are time and people to deal with them. But if we can focus on those higher risk ones. And then looking at controls, what are the different controls you have? Are you mapping to them concordance identify gaps, and look at the entire compliance picture. And then we look at actions. And for us within the software and within the workflow, we have two main actions. We have external actions, which are the actions that we're sending you and your teams when the government makes an amendment. And then internal actions would be tasks just between yourselves, kind of like your compliance calendar, your activities, when you've got your permits that expire, anything like that that's internally generated. And then the fifth piece is an audit module that we have. The audit checklist can be created directly from the obligations in your registers. Now, today's, because we're doing a high level demo today, we're not going to do a deep dive into auditing. So that's something that we could do later. But just know that the auditing module exists and it can be integrated with the registers, if and when someone is ready for that. So when we're looking at the solution, we're looking at an integrated solution between regulations, which we talked about, standards, which we've talked about at a high level, and then company documents. So another opportunity is taking those company documents, identifying your obligations, and then bringing those into your same platform. So then, from an intellectual property and a knowledge point of view, you've got one location where all your obligations are being housed, and then you can assess and manage them in the same way. Earlier, I mentioned about other topic areas. So our goal is to be able to help you across all the different departments in your company. So whether you're, coming in this meeting today from the environment group, the quality group, the health and safety, cybersecurity, HR, it doesn't matter. We can build out that content, build out those registers, and then give you that workflow and that compliance peace of mind that you're looking for. So our product journey slide here, this does sort of integrate a little bit with the software workflow one that we just went over. And this is essentially it's also how we price our software. So if we look at 1, 2, and 3, the library, the chatbot, and the newsletter, that is sort of one level of grouping. So if your company is, at a spot where you're not necessarily sure what you're monitoring, you do not have registers built out, you don't have a lot of resources and a larger team to manage it, and you're wanting just the notification piece, then that would be a starting point for you. So you get the newsletter set up. It comes to individual emails depending on what jurisdiction they're in, what topics they want. So you can customize each newsletter, and every month you get an update saying, here's what's changed in the library, here's what's new, here's what's been amended. So it gives you that notification piece. That's the end of the workflow when you're subscribing to just the newsletter. Number 4, the register is now basically a next level up. So for those companies that have more resources or wanting to get more granular into their tracking and their notifications, then we can start to build out registers that become specific to a particular asset, a particular manufacturing site, and get more granular into what that site does and make the register then more specific to their operations. When you create a register, you also create workflow and notifications and logging that comes with that. So one of the major distinctions between the newsletter and the register is the workflow piece. So the newsletter goes out as a PDF, and that's the end of the notification. The register, the update goes out to a specific team or person, and that gets recorded into the system. So now you have due diligence. Now you have a process to say, who did it go to, when did they review it, did they close it, is it still outstanding, and things like that. And then when we look at number 5, risk controls and actions, those are all add-on workflow tools to the register. So risk being risk ranking, controls being mapping to your controls, linking them, uploading them, anything like that, and actions being your internal actions that you're also using to track your compliance activities. And then number 6, the auditing piece, as we mentioned, it can stand alone. Or if you've got something in your register and you want to turn it into an audit checklist, with a couple of clicks, you can convert one of your register modules into one of the documents in your register into an audit. So that's at a really kind of high level, sort of how we approach the product. I will jump over into the software now. And did that change to you? I'm not used to.
What page are you trying to go to? I mean, I can see your screen, your mouse moving.
The homepage, the mnemonic homepage.
Yes, we are on the
Yep.
homepage.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was a tab based. Okay, thanks. So this is our main landing page. Every user can set up a different landing page depending on their preferences and what locations they operate in and so forth. But going back to that product journey, one of the first things was the library. So if I go along the top to library, go to Mnemonic library, from here I can access, I think I don't know, maybe 1 million documents in here, combination of regulatory and standards. And so it opens up without any documents showing, and then it's relying on you to give it some input. So whether you want to search for a specific document, or if you don't know the document you're looking for and you want to just focus on filtering out some jurisdictions. These filters that you see on the screen right now are essentially the same filters that you see and can customize when you're setting up the newsletter service. So you can pick the jurisdiction. So I'm in Canada, so I'm going to load that. So say someone's in the United Kingdom, you could load that. And you'll have, when we set up an instance, so this is a software as a service, we'll set up an instance for your company, and then we'll turn on the jurisdictions that you're operating in and that you want to subscribe to. So you don't see all the jurisdictions in our library. You just see them, get the ones turned on that you want. Industrial sectors, we like to say, is who the document is for. So we do different groupings based on sectors. And then for topics, we like to say that this is what the document is about. Within the topics, there's subtopic levels. We do have a breakdown that we could send you for anybody that wants to get more granular into that. Environment has 7 different subtopics. Safety has 4 different subtopics. Cybersecurity just has 1. HR has 1. Different ones for border control, different topic areas like that. So let's just say I want to do a search. So let's say I load in safety management, leave my jurisdictions. I can also filter by standards versus laws based on the status of the document. And so forth. So if I just go ahead and hit generate results, it goes to the library, it pulls back. So we can see all of our documents that match now. I've got 36 pages. That's a lot to go through. So I'm just going to filter on essential documents, which are the documents in an area that have the most obligations in them. And then that drops me down to 4 pages. From here, I can jump into any one of these documents. So if I go ahead and let's just say I open up the labor code. And then this takes me to our document title page. A document title page gives you an overview of this entire document, and it doesn't matter which country, which government this document came from. They all follow the same structure, so you've got consistency amongst the different countries. So we give it our jurisdiction, and then we have an abstract. So this is one of the areas that we're using AI. So we've really building out the summaries and the abstracts to give you guys a better overview as to what the document is pertaining to. We then have our metadata tagging, the sector, the document type, and the topics that this document was tagged with. If we go further down the screen, we can see if there's any child or parent document type relationships. So regulations under acts, things like that. The history of changes, so you can go through the history. Everything in blue is linked, so you can dive into the amending files and get deeper into that amendment. And then if we keep going down the screen, we have the text, the full text version. We link to the source documents, and then you'll see a translate with Google. So for those that are operating in multiple countries with multiple languages, we do publish in the official language of that particular country's government, and then introduce translation services built in here, and then within the register, other translation as well. I like to call this version here the Word version. You can see it kind of reads more like a Word file. But in the very top of the screen here, you'll see it says see 630 obligations. What this is telling you is that for the Canada Labour Code, let's just say I'm not sure, let's just say there's 2,000 clauses. What this is telling us is that 630 of those clauses contain obligations. So if I click on it, it opens up a new view. And this view is, I like to call this the Excel view. And we'll see that each clause is now sliced and diced into its own row and different columns. And one of the column types is called clause type. I can now filter on the clause type, and I could filter on just those 600 obligations that it told me that I had. So it allows you to, dive into the content and then weed out some of the filler and really just focus on um, where the AI has identified that there's an obligation here that you need to be following. Keep in mind, I'm still in the library. I'm just kind of still in research stage. I'm not in my registers. I'm not in compliance mode. I'm just really in, review and so forth. But that's an example of how the documents are parsed and then how they're identified by clause type. If I go back to the library heading, and then if I go under the library updates newsletter, this would be very similar to how the newsletter service would work. So each email account associated with the file could be set up with their own newsletters, and those newsletters would be then set up based on these filters here. So again, like I mentioned, you can pick the jurisdiction. So let's just say someone is, in the United States, and let's just say they're in Texas, so they could do that. And then if someone else was in, another province, another country, another state, they could each have their different jurisdictions set. Depending, you could change your filters based on the change type. So if I leave it blank, then it will be all inclusive and it will include new documents, new versions, amendments, and everything. If I want to go ahead and pick out a few different topics, so if I'm in the environment group and I want to build out some of the environmental topics, and then every month you're going to get the email coming into your inbox, but let's just say you're going into a quarterly meeting, you want to be more inclusive, you want to include a few more months. So then at that point, you can come into the software, create your own version of the newsletter, and then generate it from the filters that you've applied. Once the report generates, you can see we've got a few different versions that we can look at. So I've got a jurisdiction, I've got the document. So again, the blue is linked, so I could go to the full document. I could see the description. I can see an AI summary of the update. I can then go ahead and dive deeper into any of that. In the middle here, we've got a few other blue buttons here. So view newsletter. So this would take me to my newsletter itself. So if I go here, this is what the newsletter essentially looks like that would show up in your inbox monthly. And it gives you the jurisdiction, the type, the change, that it's in force, links to all the background documents. And then you'll see here it says not tracked, add to register. So one of the other checks and balances between the newsletter service is that if you already have that document in a register, it'll tell you that it's tracked. Here's an example here, it's tracked, and then you can see what register it's in. If it's not in anything, it'll tell you it's not tracked. So it just gives you another check and balance to say, hey, maybe this is a new document, maybe I should be monitoring for it as well. If I go back to the library updates, in addition to having like the PDF view that I just showed you, there's also exporting to CSV and Excel. So if you want to move it into more of a working file, so you can add columns, add rows, add your own edits, give yourself a tracking file, you can do that as well. So that's a quick overview of the library and the newsletter. I'm going to go into the chatbot now. So we call it Reg Chat. So I'll just go ahead and open that. And how do I get rid of, oh, I don't use Zoom. How do I hide it? I can't get to my tab. There we go. So the chatbot opens up in a new window. It is a RAG-based chatbot, so it's been trained on documents specific to our library. You'll see that if I go on the left-hand side under regulatory source, it gives you a few options to choose from. We haven't trained it with every single document in our library, so we are doing it on a staged approach. We can see we've got a lot from Alberta, some Australian federal, Canada federal, United States based on titles. So say I could go turn on a specific title. And then once you pick the document, I could also be more granular and pick a specific subdocument if I wanted. And then I can go over into the chat and ask the questions. I've got a recent chat here, so let's give that a click so then I don't have to retype. So I can go ahead and I just said, write me an audit finding for improper storage. So we can see here we've got the finding, a condition, a summary, some criteria, cause, effect, recommendation, linking to sources. And so you can continue, dialoguing with it, interacting with it, pulling off if you want to, if you're actually doing an audit, you could copy and paste this, move it over, ask it to summarize, particular title interpretation, and just the way, same way you'd use any of the other interactive models. But again, the main difference is being a RAG, it's not, the hallucinations are less because it's not going to be fed on everything that like OpenAI or Anthropic or something will be trained on. Okay. So let's go back to our homepage here. And so we've talked about the library, the newsletter, and the chatbot. So let's kind of dive into the registers a little bit. Registers are housed in what we call sort of facilities or level 1 folders. And so depending on the size of your company, depending on the structure, the number of different assets, locations, and activities you have, this would really change. A lot of facilities or level 1 structures will kind of represent a corporate entity structure as it relates to departments. And then of course, it depends on how many different topic areas you're loading in. So if you're, including cyber, if you're including environment and health and safety, then that's going to change the structure as well. For every one of the level 1 folders on the left, you have audits, equipment, and registers within those. So say, for example, I click on registers in this manufacturing demo file. We can see here that we could have a generic register. We could have a separate one for cybersecurity, a separate one that's combined between environment, health, and safety, another one for your permits, tracking them when they expire, things like that. And then if you had standards that you were subscribing to, you could have a separate register for your copyrighted standards. If I go into, for example, this EH&S one, then it opens up and you'll see it feels very familiar, like an Excel file. So rows, columns, and really kind of letting you manage it like you would in Excel. Our main column here is our document column. So essentially when we were in the library, if there was a document that we wanted in our register, we would say add to register, and then we would pick the register we wanted to go into. I'm in a register now. I have an add document button as an administrator, so I can go ahead and click add document and go and grab a document from the library if I want to expand this one. One of the settings we have for the registers is that when the government releases a new document that matches the parameters, so let's just say the parameters of this one is, well, you see here it says Ontario and federal. It's not necessarily accurate as far as how the back end has been set up, but the idea being is that you could set parameters. You could say, so if a new document comes out, if it matches these specific jurisdictions, and if it matches these topics, then I want you to automatically add it to the register. When it gets added to the register, it then triggers a workflow notification to the responsible party of the register. And in this case here, if we look at, say, migratory birds, Tia is the responsible party. So if this document got amended, it would go to her. So everything gets tracked inside the register. As soon as a notification goes out, whether it's for a new document or an amended document, there's a tracking of that. It's in the logs and it becomes recorded as part of the external actions. If I go up to actions and then look at external actions, you can see that we've got, Tia, you have some work to do. We've got 1,600 tasks to clean up here and then 1,700 internal ones to clean up.
Yep,
We create,
I receive email reminders for these.
I
I
do
actually do
too.
need to go clear them out.
So we can see here that, so the responsible party, as I mentioned, so T is an individual responsible on the migratory birds, but on the greenhouse gas, it's the environment team. So that means that all the people that are tagged to the environment team, whether that's 4 or 5 different emails, they would all get the workflow notification. They'd all get the email with the link to the register. And then from there, they can, follow up and close the task. Some of the, all these different columns along here, you can see there's a lot of different ones here. And essentially that's for you to decide, and again, to meet you where you're at. So how much capacity do you have to manage a register? Are you happy to just get an update and that's the extent of what your team can handle? Or do you want to start doing things like assessment? Do you want to be looking at it and tagging which ones you're conforming with, what you're not conforming with? All of these, anytime I change the assessment, I have the opportunity of writing a note and giving some more background to my colleagues. And all of these values here feed into the dashboard. So I can go into my dashboard, I can go to registers, and then, for example, I could scroll down and I can look at my assessment overview. So I can see, I've got 81 documents that are non-conforming that I still need to deal with. And that, obviously ties into my reporting and other things like that. So you can get more advanced in your compliance tracking, build different fields depending on what it is that you want. If I scroll over to the right a little bit, we can see we've got the internal actions. So this is how I could go ahead and assign a task, an action to somebody else on my team. I can assign this to Tia. I can say, write a new policy. This is why we end up with 1,600 tasks that never get done. And then I can do things like I can repeat it. So let's just say instead of writing a new policy, it was permit renewal. And I could say that this repeats every 1 year. And I want it to um, repeat on February 28th. So you can go ahead and pick your due dates, who you're assigning it to, when it's due, when you want them to get notifications, and everything kind of like that. So that kind of really builds out your compliance. If I scroll further more to the right, all of these columns here are part of what we call our custom controls, custom fields. And just like you would in Excel, you can just add a column, and you can have these columns be drop downs, open text, links to your file share. So if you wanted to link to a control or a supporting policy, and you want to link to your SharePoint or your Google Drive or your Dropbox or whatever system you're using, you could go ahead and start to build out that knowledge. You could identify who the subject matter expert on this document might be. You could link to evidence. You could upload PDFs, Excel, anything. So you start to build out that compliance picture as much or as little as you have the time and the capacity to do within your team. And you could start small. You could start with just a list of documents, just a responsible party, and start tracking your notifications specific to the document level. Then you could grow it to adding more and more compliance data over the quarters and over the years. I'm going to jump over to another register here and just show you some other kind of AI development work that we're doing here. So if we look at a document in a register, and I'm going to go ahead and we have this obligations column, and the obligations column, I showed you this earlier from the library, and that gave us the ability to see just the clauses. And if I click on the 130, instead of looking at this document like as a Word document, I can look at it like an Excel file. So when I open a document like this from the register, then it breaks it down again into the clause level. But the difference is that now I have all those same other columns and workflow that I just showed you. So I have things like in the library, you don't have responsible party, you don't have assessment history, you don't have any of these columns, because in the library, you're just viewing and researching. When you're in the register, you can now start to manipulate this data. So a few things that we're doing on the AI front is we have a AI enhanced text. So you have your original text, and then you have an AI enhanced version of that. So again, just a little bit more knowledge and sharing. And then as I scroll further over, we have a couple new columns that we're rolling out in the next month here. AI applicability assessment and then AI relevance. So your main assessment is done by you, your subject matter experts. The AI assessment is then an initial assessment that's done. Is it applicable? Could it be applicable? Is it not applicable? Might apply. That is then done based on the profile that we're loading that are specific to your entity, your operations for the operations that you're doing in the location that you're doing. So it will start to do a preliminary scope based on that. And then it will give you the AI relevance. So it's going to then tell you why it's deemed to have that applicability assessment the way it has. So that will be rolling out across all the different obligations, company specific, operations specific. Yes. Okay. That is okay. We're right at the 10:30 mark or bottom of the hour. So open it up for questions. We do have a lot that on the auditing side, the reporting side that we're not going to dive into today because I know I'm talking fast and there's a lot to cover. But just wanted to give you a kind of a high level overview. So we talked about the library, we talked about the newsletter, we talked about the chat, the regulatory chat, and then registers now become specific to your operations. So we build them based on the document level, build them up specific to your jurisdictions and activities that you're doing. And then you can start to create more workflow. Who's responsible? Do you want to start to risk rank it? Do you want to start to link in other controls and things like that? So let's turn it over. How are we doing, Tia? Any chats coming in? Any questions?
Yes, there's some relevant to discuss. I've been answering some in chat, but one of the questions is that the topics covered in library does not have one that is health or medical device related. Is that something that is being developed? How would a standard like ISO 13485 be categorized using the existing topics?
Yeah, so medical device is a new topic level, and then it will get categorized under that. So that um, I know uh, I know a whole bunch has been added. I'm not sure when it's going live, but we could get back to you on that.
Yep. Another person asked a similar question on is the regulations and register library available for medical devices industry? That's a similar question.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I know they've been working on it the last few months, so I'd say it's probably pretty close.
yep. And then we have a question asking, can mnemonic AI also be used to search standards content?
So our goal is to be able to say yes to that question. As of now, this so we have to get permission from the standards body to open up the standards into clause level, and our goal is to be able to have like when we went into that chatbot, be able to pick the standard and integrate it. Sorry, chat with it specifically. But at this time, we don't have the permission. So as soon as we get that copyright permission to open it up, we will do that.
When it comes to legislative changes, does the AI tool provide a summary of those changes, or does the newsletter cover this, or is it up to the individual to do a side-by-side comparison?
Yeah, so if we go to internal actions, there is, if I go to updated clause, let's put on the first one here, there is a side by side that's done between the previous version and the new version, so we can see the red and the green. You'll see this blue button at the bottom, see the updated clause. So from here, I could jump into the register and then continue my workflow. That's one example. If we go back to the library newsletter, let me just grab a topic here. Okay, short. Then you'll see, oh, I need to back up my data a little bit here. And then you'll see in this update section here are like a summary. So this one here has an AI summary interpretation kind of piece of what the amendment means. So that would be where you'd see that.
Yep, so the answer to your question is you can do both things. Um, Somebody else asks, what is facility equipment?
It's a smaller module. Didn't dive into it. So it allows you to both in your audits and in your registers. So you could load a bunch of equipment. You could set up dates and expiries on that. When you're doing your audit, you can basically tag the equipment. Um, and it was built out for a customer that wanted it. But quite frankly, we don't use it much. There's not very many, but yeah, you could load up your equipment um, and then tag it in your audits.
Thanks. Is there a way to search by new components such as overhead crane, HVAC, or air conditioning and show us list of applicable legislations per component?
Um, no. Um, I know in the library, uh,
Yeah, you could do a keyword search and then things under your jurisdiction would show up.
yeah, they turned off the keyword and then they were turning it back on. But as far as just specifically new documents that deal with like say overhead crane, I guess I could do a publication date. So if it came out, say in the last 30 days, so something in this document has changed. Let me go. So it would be kind of a workaround. Um, Modified publication date. I'm trying to think of how that would, it could have missed, oh, because I've got, just changed my China right now.
Yep, so these are all the results for overhead crane within the jurisdiction of Canada from the dates that Leanne put in. So she put in about a month.
January 1st to February 12th.
Yeah. And then you can see all of the applicable legislations that have come up in that month or been updated in that month.
But it doesn't, like your library updates, like if you were doing just a library update, the most granular you could get would be, if I was to, here's something else that you can do too, is like if I was to look at, where did I lose my screen to? Um, Go back to library. Go back to Canada. Go back up on- So I go ahead and open one of these documents that comes up as a result. Then you can sort of, then from there, you could dive in a little bit more and kind of see what's going on. So we can see here that this has been tagged under safety management. So so if you had your filters on the newsletter set for safety management, you would get that update, but it wouldn't be specific to something as granular as overhead crane operations. So you'd have to just filter on safety management would be your lowest um, in the newsletter. Any more questions?
Yep, we have a couple more minutes.
Any feedback on the speed? Was it too much, too little? Should we slice it up more? Or is that pace okay for you?
Somebody asked, great presentation. Will this be offered on a regular basis?
Yes, I think every 2 to 3 months we're trying to put one on.
We're also happy to do a meeting or a demo if anybody would like to reach out to Leanne or me. I'll put in our emails, and if you're interested, we could get in touch and understand your specific needs and kind of tailor our presentation to what you would be looking